I'm Abigail Clauhs. Today is March 11th, 2024. I'm in Portland, Oregon at the Providence Elder Place Laurelhurst site, 31. I'm the chaplain at the site where Nancy works, so that is my relationship to her.
I'm Nancy Lammers. Today is March 11th, 2024. Same location at the Laurelhurst Providence Elder Place. I am 47.
I would just love to know, when did you first know you wanted to be a nurse?
When I was a little girl, probably about 4, maybe 5, I decided one day to go into my parents' room and look for Christmas presents. So I was going through their room, going through dressers and closets. I came across this big cardboard packing box. It had a lid on it. I opened it up. Inside was all of these photographs, newspaper clippings. The photograph featured this girl. We looked a lot alike. Some of the photographs, she was younger than I was. She was older than I was at that time. My parents were in some of the pictures with her, and kind of looked through the newspaper articles. They were beyond my level of understanding at that age. And so my mom comes into the room. She didn't say anything. She just came over to me. She took the pictures that were in my hand, just put it in the box, put everything that I had taken out of the box, put it all back away, put the lid back on, picked the box up, and just walked out of the room. She didn't say anything. I don't remember any kind of reaction. She wasn't angry. She wasn't anything. This is not something to be discussed. I did definitely have questions. And so over the next many years, I would go to the public library. And I lived in a small town, so the librarian definitely knew me. I'm sure had known my family as I was a little older. I wanted to try to find those newspaper articles again, and so she taught me how to use microfiche. I did find stories about her. It ended up she was my sister. She had leukemia when she was 2 years old and then had died from it when she was 10. There was lots of different stories. There were stories about these miraculous recoveries as it went into remission and then it coming back again. And, at one point it had gone into remission, but it had affected parts of her brain. And so she had become blind, but she ended up learning Braille and going to school. And so I just learned a lot. Sometimes the librarian would come and share stories with me, but it was always kind of this looking to make sure. My mom worked in the same building as a library. And so it was kind of making sure my mom wasn't around. The librarian also knew we weren't supposed to talk about it. I don't know how many times this happens, but there would be sometimes other people from town would come. I don't know if the librarian called them, but they would sometimes come and tell me stories. They'd be like, oh, your sister, she loved to sing. But it was always this kind of okay, I gotta go now. Everybody kind of knew it was something we didn't talk about, but they wanted to share some piece with me about her. And in things I would read, there was one period where my sister had been at Dornbecker's. It's a children's hospital here in Portland. And she had been there for over a year. And so my mom would be there and she would talk about the nurses specifically, how much they meant to my sister and to my family, supporting them, celebrating with them the good things. And then when it would come back, the not so good things, and then ultimately being there at the end. But my mom would make mention of how much specifically the nurses meant to my family. So yeah, I think I knew from early that I wanted to do something in the medical field.
And were you ever able to talk about it with your parents? You found this out?
No, I think it was just too hard for them. She died in 1975 and I was born in 76. My dad, he saw me as this second chance. I just did everything with my dad. Anybody asked me, who's your best friend or who do you look up to? It's my dad, absolutely. So we had this really close connection. My mom moved into an assisted living, so I found some papers of hers, and it was a letter she had wrote, but it was back in her possession again, and it was dated. I was about a week old when she had wrote this letter. In the letter, my mom, it was not an easy letter to read, but in the letter, my mom talked about when I was born, and she said when she first saw me, she started screaming. My sister's name was Gail, and so she was yelling, "It's Gail, it's Gail, and screaming. In the letter, she wrote about, they finally got her settled down. And she said that in knowing she was going to have a child, it never occurred to her that I might look like my sister did. And she said that that was like just how scary that was. And I think that really set the tone for my mom and I think it was too hard for her to take that chance in being hurt again. And she really resented my dad, that my dad and I were so close. She had a lot of anger, a lot of prone to rage. I would think of when things would be bad, if I could, I mean, it's kind of childlike. I could help my mom feel better if I could just be like the nurses. I knew my family was broken. I guess as far as the work I do here now, I feel like I do kind of carry my sister with me in a way. She had the nurses that cared for her through whether it was the good things or the bad things or the scary things or the pain or the whatever. I can do that. There was no magical thing that was going to help my family. But I feel like this is kind of fulfilling what I wanted to do as a kid, getting to play that role.